call this regular meeting of the Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD Board of Trustees to order at 7 p.m. on January 14th, 2021. Board members, district staff members, and members of the audience, you are free to join me in standing as Madison Wellborn provides a message, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by John Matthews, and the pledge to the Texas flag, led by Tara Urbacek.
If you bow your heads with me. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that might affect the students, staff, and trustees of the district. May we invest ourselves in our work, yet not forget that it is you who is working through us. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Before we move on, I should mention that Madison Wellborn, who delivered the message to us, was from Abilene Christian University, Addison campus. We thank you for being here. As a district, we dedicate all our efforts and resources to our goal of high expectations for all. The board uses this goal to guide all deliberations, decisions, and actions. You will get to see all deliberations, decisions, and actions of the board in open session, with the exception of some items which may be discussed in a closed session, as stipulated in the Texas Government Code, Section 551, commonly known as the Open Meetings Law. These items typically deal with personnel matters, consultation with our attorney, and real estate. For the record, board members present are Tara Urbacek, John Matthews, Sally Derrick, Randy Shackman, Guillermo Ramos, and Les Black. We constitute a quorum and may conduct business on behalf of the district. Before moving on to the next agenda item, I'd like to remind you that the board will accept comments from citizens of the district and from district employees. Anyone wishing to speak, either as an individual or a representative of a group, may do so during agenda item number 3, Audience for Guests. Please submit your request to do so on one of the forms provided on the table just outside the boardroom door. You may place the completed form in the box provided on that same table, or present your completed form to Administrative Assistant Ken Castagnon. When the board addresses agenda item number 3, Audience for Guests, you will be invited to the podium to speak to the board. Our next agenda item is number 2, Special Presentations and Recognitions. Dr. Chapman?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Up first is going to be our Teacher of the 9 weeks. And Ms. Purnell's going to present the winners.
Good evening, President Black, board members, and Dr. Chapman. Tonight we are pleased to share with you our Teachers of the 9 weeks. We are sharing those with you virtually, and we look forward to the time that they can join us in person again. So if you will join me in watching this brief video. Maybe.
Jessica Petrie, McCoy Elementary. Jayla Williams, McCamey Elementary. Tracy Miller, McLaughlin Strickland Elementary. Stephen McAdams, McWhorter Elementary. Daniel Darasol, Rainwater Elementary. Tiffany Milton, Riverchase Elementary. Kristen Smith, Rosemead Elementary. Corey Johnson, Sheffield Elementary. Bianca Teniente, Stark Elementary. Jackie Schaefer, Thompson Elementary. Margaret Mars, Blaylock Middle School. Abby Ramos, Barbara Bush Middle School. Sarah Duke, Vivian Field Middle School. And Alex Love of Dan F. Long Middle School.
So congratulations again to all these recipients. If we'll give them a round of applause, please. Thank you.
The next items are 2B1, Superintendent's Report, and 2B2, CFB Way. Dr. Chapman?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So over the course of the last 2 weeks, I've spent a lot of time with Dallas County and Denton County talking through the rollout of the vaccine. And so we're still in the process of learning when will our employees be able to receive the vaccine. So far, we've had the opportunity for our nurses and our security department to receive the vaccine. But when are we going to roll out the other pieces of this? And so we still to this day don't know. But a lot has changed, literally just in this week alone. And so we're hoping that we're going to be on that next step. We had 212 superintendents and or districts that has signed a letter to the governor, as well as several organizations partnership with us to put at least teachers on that next list. And so we're very hopeful. Once that takes place, we're going to make sure that we're coordinating with Dallas County and Denton County to make sure that our employees aren't having to travel long distances. Hopefully they can be in the local area, hopefully, maybe even in our school district and maybe even in one of our parking lots. They're doing vaccines in several different ways, from drive-through tents that I was able to go watch the process, as well as some to where you would actually go into a building. So different communities / counties are doing it differently, but the good thing is that they are rolling them out and they're getting faster and faster by the day. And so we're hopeful that we will continue this process, but just know that CFB is open their doors to allow for this to happen, and we're willing and ready to partnership. Big shout out to Miss Leak and the nurses, still just going above and beyond the call of duty, working countless hours to making sure that we're reporting correctly, that we're testing people. We do test now. We've been testing for a while, and then making sure that we're doing contract tracing, and then that we're quarantining the right amount of people based on the CDC guidelines that we have. And so very exhausting of these individuals, the work that they're doing, but man, if you see one, tell them thank you so much, because they are doing an exceptional job as we move forward. Now, going into a little bit about legislation. Legislation is here, is kicked off. New speaker. There's going to be a lot of new things rolling out. You'll be receiving a lot of information from me in the coming days. I'm also going to be sending you a pretty hefty document of all of the educational bills that have been filed as of yesterday. So I'll be sending that to you probably tomorrow in the process of how are we going to advocate and do those things as legislation meets. It's going to be a little different this year. I was in a couple meetings today and how it may now, or it will be, virtual, and how will it be in writing instead of us going out on the floor, having conversations, walking the halls, having meeting times with some of those representatives may look a little different this year in that process. But I will say this, and Mr. Bassett was going to bring this up in his presentation. He's obviously not here tonight, but the financial picture looks a whole lot better than what it did, to the point of it looks like there's only going to be a shortfall of $1 billion. We all say $1 billion, that's a lot of money. Spread out across the state, it's not. That does not count for the federal dollars that are actually coming in. That does not count for the federal dollars that are coming in. With that being said, we feel that we're going to be kept whole for the upcoming school year, the next biennium. Meaning we're not, at one time we were talking large cuts coming to CFB and other school districts, and I don't believe that that's going to happen today. I don't believe that they're going to do anything financially to House Bill 3 that was passed. Will there be some legislation that may alter some of the language for House Bill 3? I believe that will happen. But I'm going to send you a lot of those bills so you can look at those as we start to be advocates for public education in this 87th legislative session. So a lot of good things coming. It was doom and gloom, and now I feel pretty confident in what that's going to look like for CFB as we move forward. But we're going to be very, very busy staying in front of this and having conversations with the representatives that we have, let alone all the legislators that are out there. Talking a little bit about STAR. STAR testing is still in the unknown. Had a meeting with the Commissioner of Education today about what is STAR going to look like. We all know that we're taking it as of today. CFB is planning to have STAR online this school year with the exception of 4th grade writing. That is our plan. There was a letter, sent that to you in a memo about STAR is coming online very soon, 2023 for all. And so this was a great opportunity for us. But in the meeting today, my point is that there's still a large number of legislators saying we should not take it. Why? Why is the reasoning behind that? I don't know all the whys, but one of the biggest ones is right now it's saying we're going to take it, and all children that come in to take it must be in our building to take the test. Does it say they're all got to be there at one time? Doesn't mean they're putting 22 babies in a room. That's not what they're saying. But how is that going to work? And so I know there's a fairly big group stating that we don't even need to be taking it for this year. So we'll see what legislation comes, what they roll out as we move forward over the next probably month to 2 months. A lot of conversations are coming out. This will be in a memo tomorrow too about having a virtual academy in 2021. It was brought up today amongst the state. And are we going to have that opportunity for few children as we move forward? And the answer is maybe. But right now, there is not a financial piece that will allow us to do that for all children. Now, we can use TXVSN. There are platforms that we can use, which we're planning on developing that today. But Commissioner used extreme caution to districts, because it's being talked about widely, about districts being able to offer that for a select few children for the 21-22 school year. Big conversation came up of whole harmless today. So as you're aware, the first semester we were whole harmless, meaning we were fully funded no matter what our ADA was. You know, we were short at one time of a little over 530 children. That number has declined, but there is still no movement made that this will happen. I sent you an article today, part of the Dallas Morning News, stating that, you know, there's a big push saying whose responsibility is it and who's going to approve this. In the meeting today with the Commissioner of Education, the conversation came up that there's still 3% of the children that are not attending school. Still no-shows, so to speak. About 160,000 children across the state of Texas. How many of those districts does it affect? And it's about 2/3 of the district, so 1/3 it doesn't affect. Majority, 50%, not majority, of those children are pre-K kindergarten children that are also no-shows. So they're still yet to be determined, as much as saying we may not know if that will be approved and if the commissioner will make any announcements until mid-February. So that would be over $1 million cut to CFB if we are not funded from prior ADA, last year's ADA. So we'll see what that looks like as we move forward. I'll keep you abreast. Staying on top of it. I'm having meetings literally every single day. And so the more we know, more I can advocate, and we can be a bigger voice, meaning public education, the public school districts across the state, the better off that we're going to be. The great thing is, amongst chambers and other organizations, they're all singing the same voice. Many of the school districts have very similar legislative priorities, similar to what you approved that we have now sent to all our representatives. Many are having the exact same voice, and that is huge as we move into this legislative session. So I'll continuously be giving you information. I'll be rolling out that on a regular basis to you. Anytime you have questions, please ask, and then I can also be gathering that information from the stakeholders. And so a lot of good things happening right now, but it's yet to be determined what legislation does as we move forward. Last thing, MLK event, Saturday. There's going to be 2 different events. So as of today, 6 p.m. tonight, 2 different events. One, MLK parade will start at 10 a.m., okay, at City Hall, and we'll do the normal route for the parade. We'll end at Polk. And then that's going to conclude that. We're not going into Polk cafeteria, still needing to follow CDC guidelines in the process. That ends. Then at 1 o'clock at the park, so Carrollton Park, there will then be the Trailblazer event. CFBISD will, Dr. Black will read a proclamation, part of MLK Day at 2 p.m. And then probably 2:05 p.m., CFBISD will be receiving the Trailblazer Award. And then there'll be some other people that will also be receiving that award, former employees of CFBISD. Mr. Bouncy will receive award, and Ms. Tarpley will receive awards. So 2 historical figures, well-deserved awards. Very excited about that. As well as there's going to be the crowning of Mr. and Miss MLK. And so but they're 2 different events, so please understand, 2 different events, so we'll have a lag between probably about 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. there starts the awards at 2 p.m.
You said Carrollton Park. You mean the square?
The square, the park.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been all calling it the park in Carrollton. Yeah, the square. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You want to roll with CFB?
All right. Well, it's time for CFB Way at this point.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So under CFB Way, we're going to recognize employees and a few students at this time.
Tonight, we are proud to congratulate Ranchview High School student Sharija Atterley for being selected to USA Fencing's All-American Second Team. U.S. Fencing's All-American program recognizes high school fencers across the country who have excelled at a high level. Athletes who receive this honor are the best high school fencers in the country. Student fencers at this level have superior skills as well as excellent leadership and sportsmanship. Sarija is a junior at Ranchview High School and has been fencing for 6 years. To make the All-American team, Sarija had to accumulate both national and regional points by competing in various fencing tournaments and competitions. All athletes selected to the USA All-American team must be in good academic standing at their school and display exceptional character as athletes, students, and as community members. Principal Sherry Scratch is here to support her tonight, and we want to congratulate Sharija for this wonderful achievement.
Huge accomplishment. I'm so proud.
Thank you so much. Next, we'd like to present the Together We Can Award, and this is sponsored by CFBISD and Chick-fil-A. The Together We Can Award is presented to a CFBISD employee who demonstrates excellent customer service. Tonight, we are proud to present this award to Mr. Melvin Trammell. Melvin, if you'll please come forward. Mr. Trammell is a technology specialist and has been with the district for 13 years. He has gone up and beyond, working countless hours to help support the staff, students, and parents during the pandemic. Melvin's responsibilities include supporting the technicians and the service desk. He images computers for staff, Chromebook configurations, iPad configurations, keeping Windows images updated, and pushing out all the software. Mr. Trammell has helped organize and operate the help desk drive-through at the TLC for the last 9 months nightly from 5 to 7 to support our remote learners and working parents during this pandemic. Through every single technology challenge we have faced during this pandemic, Melvin has risen above with great success, and he finds a way to get it done. Melvin is a significant part of our technology department, and as his supervisor said, Mr. B.J. Welch, we don't know where we would be without him. So Mr. Scott Monroe is here tonight as well as another supervisor of his, and we're so proud of you for this accomplishment. And finally, under CFB Way tonight, January is a very special month for us. It's School Board Recognition Month, and we are pleased to join the statewide campaign to show appreciation for you, our Board of Trustees. This year's theme is Navigating to Success. Your leadership helps our students and staff navigate to high levels of success, and we want you to know how much we appreciate your work and the many countless volunteer hours that you put in with the district. Our campuses and staff have provided thank you notes and messages, which have been placed in the gift bags that were at your seats earlier, and we hope you will enjoy tonight reading through those. And we want our community to know more about our board members, so please make sure you look at our social media accounts and our websites to read the narratives about our board members so you can learn more about who they are. So at this time, I'd like to ask you to join me in watching a brief appreciation video about our Board of Trustees.
They are the CFBISD School Board Trustees. They are individuals who build bridges to our community. They are the ones who are the voice for you and your child. They listen to parents, community members, school staff, and parents to ensure their hopes and dreams are kept alive as they navigate their public education journey. Their contributions will have a lasting impact in CFBISD. They advocate for CFBISD. They strengthen us. They support us. They fight for us to make sure we are heard. They provide direction for our school community. They care for all our children. They set the destination towards success. They are the ones who are constantly thinking of new ways to shape your child's future and success. They are the CFBISD School Board Trustees. They are focused. They make sure the resources are in place so our staff can complete their work and for students to have a successful journey towards their goals. They are the CFBISD School Board Trustees. They are proud to represent CFBISD. They know that when your child leaves class at the end of the year, they will make a lasting impact on their life. They are caring, servant leaders. They are responsible for communicating their staff and students' needs to the CFB community to provide the best education possible for our children. They are the voice of CFBISD. They are determined. They want to help. They want to guide your child to do great things. They are the CFBISD School Board Trustees.
So again, we want to thank you for all the work you've done. And Dr. Chapman, did you have a few words you wanted to say at this time?
Yeah, I just want to say personally, guys, thank you so much for what you guys have done. During a pandemic, you have done some remarkable things. As far as making sure that our teachers had the resources that they needed, you didn't blink an eye. When we needed to go one-to-one devices, you didn't blink an eye. I mean, this is even before the state of Texas decided to do some matching, before, we were looking at ViewSonic and Promethean boards and all those things. You jumped out above that, and you helped our teachers do that. More importantly, and I think one of the biggest things is when you talk about people themselves, providing counseling services for our teachers. Thank you so much. For our staff, thank you so much. For our kids, thank you so much. Being able to provide a supplemental stipend for our teachers, thank you. They are grateful for that. We're appreciative of that. Whenever we went in there and started looking at, COVIDs and quarantines and all of those things, we had something on the federal side to protect them for a one time, but you came back and said we could use our sick leave bank. You were able to allow us to do those things. And so I just I can't thank you enough, because every time we've asked, you didn't even blink a single eye. Some people can say it's rubber stamped, and that's a bunch of garbage, because you constantly ask me a whole lot of questions. I can tell you that, especially some of you. You beat me upside down, but you know what? In the end, it's always good for our community. And one of the number one priorities that you always have, and this is what you always ask me, is it good for kids? What's the outcome going to be for our children? And is it good for our staff? What a great group of individuals that are working to make sure that you are being stewards of our taxpayer dollars, but you truly care. You truly care for this district and the people that work in this district. So I just wanted to tell you thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman. And tonight, we would like to close in recognizing you with a special performance. It's from the students of the R.L. Turner A Cappella Choir, and performing are Israel Kay, a senior, Brianna Farrar, she's a junior, Madison Pfeifenberger, she's a senior, and Christian Arara, a junior. And so they will be performing A Million Dreams from The Greatest Showman. And we want you to know the directors of the choir are Evan Brown, he's the head director, and Austin Heatherly, the assistant choir director. So join me in watching this wonderful performance.
tonight from Newman Smith High School, and we also have a birthday in the room tonight. And I asked him this morning, I was like, so what do you want to do for your birthday? He said, I just want to come to a school board meeting. And so Mr. Maroney is here tonight and is celebrating his birthday. So happy birthday, Mr. Maroney. But thank you guys. Thank you so much for what you do. The whole district is very grateful for your leadership and your time and your efforts.
Well, thank you, Dr. Chapman, and thanks to the R.L. Turner Choir and Ms. Brown at R.L. Turner, and congratulations to all our teachers and our tech person that was awarded tonight, and of course our student that we recognized tonight. Very inspiring work, and it was an inspiring way to finish it all, so thank you again. Our next item is 2B3, the PTA update. Is our PTA representative here? Very good.
Good evening. That was a really tough act to follow. That was lovely. What a treat. My name is Amy Talbert, and I am the Reflections Chair for CFB Council PTA this year. I hope you were all able to join us last night for our reflection ceremony. We had over 180 people attend, which was really great for this year. 17 schools were represented with 167 entries. We were submitted. We awarded 112 entries last night, and 24 of them are moving onto the state level of competition. CFBISD and its PTAs will be very well represented at the state PTA this year. I am also pleased to report that all of our PTAs are in good standing with Texas PTA. We are one of the few districts in the state who can say that. PTAs will be getting ready for their elections as well as nominating amazing volunteers for the PTA Life Member Award at each school, with the District Life Member Award ceremony to be held via Zoom on April 22nd at 6:30. If you haven't already, please join our Council PTA Facebook page for important updates and information of all of our events. Our next PTA delegate meeting will be March 10th at 6:30. I hope you will join us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to the PTA. The next item on our agenda is number 3, audience for guests. And I believe we have two. And so I'll call on the first would be Asad Rahman and Mark McPeak. Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Before you start, I need to read a quick statement. Before we begin, I remind our audience members of the board's procedures for handling audience for guests. Anyone interested to speak in person during audience for guests must sign in and list the topics they want to discuss. Each speaker will be allowed to speak once during audience for guests. Each speaker will be allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to address the board, dictated by board policy BED local. Because the board wants to hear from as many of you as possible while also keeping the meeting running efficiently, groups of more than 5 people who want to present a particular viewpoint on a topic should appoint one person to speak on behalf of their group. Again, that speaker's presentation will be limited to 3 minutes. If you speak during audience for guests, either individually or on behalf of a group, please remember that the board cannot deliberate on any subject that is not included on the agenda for this meeting. Last, we ask that you not discuss students who are not your own child. Our timekeeper is Vice President Sally Derrick. Please, Ms. Derrick, time each speaker for 3 minutes, and speakers, the timekeeper, Ms. Derrick will let you know when you have 1 minute left. So our first speakers are Asad Rahman and Mark McPeak.
Thank you all very much for your time. My name is Mark McPeak. I'm here to discuss the ISD school bid for the Frankfurt Road property. And I'm here on behalf of Kalam, which submitted a bid that was not accepted. So even though I have 3 minutes, I want to share a very quick story. I have a 16-year-old son who, over the years, has taught me, I hope, less than I've taught him, but it doesn't mean I haven't learned from him. And what I learned is that sometimes when I would tell him, when he would ask for something and I would tell him, Sam, just because, it wasn't good enough. And sometimes I learned that he just wanted to be heard. And sometimes, although fewer than those instances, when I did hear him and I learned how to listen from him, I changed course. It didn't and does not happen very often. I maintain my position that I'm correct more than half of the time. We disagree on that, but he's a wonderful young man, and as you can see, I bring his lessons with me. I'm grateful to you all for your time and consideration. I would say more on that, but I've used up most of my time with my story about my son. Our offer met all the specifications, was above the asking price, included the required commissions. We met all the conditions of the required bid package. Most importantly was the condition that the close be able to happen within a prescribed period of time. Inherent or embedded in that requirement was the absence of any financial contingencies that would prevent that timeline being met. We understand, or I understand, and by the way, remain ready to meet all the conditions of our bid package, which was timely submitted, complete, met all the requirements, and remains, I think, a very valid and desirable offer. The package that was accepted, I understand, was, and I'm not going to bury the lead nor do I hide behind the fact that it was higher than our offer. However, my understanding is that that bid contained a financial contingency which required the sale of a building before close, which would make closing within the time period at best a stretch and virtually impossible, particularly in a market. I work in commercial real estate and I've lived through residential real estate, and flipping and turning buildings for that kind of time period is difficult at best in a good market, and this is not one of those markets. This is not a small condition. This is a significant piece. The ability to close a transaction is, other than being able to fund it, is the most important aspect of any real estate transaction. I maintain that our bid, which again was above asking price, remains desirable, and I do believe that it requires additional consideration, particularly in lieu of what I believe are fundamental and irreconcilable flaws that consist in and are part of the original and accepted bid. And really, ultimately, well, other than you accepting it, which would be terrific, and I can go home a happy man, is we would just like to, we'd ask nothing more than to be considered on the same terms as everybody else. I'm not suggesting or implying any favoritism was played, but the presence of this contingency. When I close deals, usually I remove them, all contingencies. This one is a big one. It's a big hurdle. It's not present in our deal. As you'll see, again, we are above asking price. We meet all the components, all the pieces, and we would ask for reconsideration and acceptance of our bid based ultimately on our pieces, but again, on some inherent flaws that we feel should not be overlooked and that just simply cannot be overcome. And I will end short of my allotted time, which if you ask that same job, never ever happens. So thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Roman is not going to speak. I've spoken on his behalf as well. I apologize.
Mr. Roman is not,
Yes, I apologize.
You spoke on his behalf.
Make it. Mr. Roman will not be speaking tonight.
thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. So our next speaker, our next speaker is Rajan Matthew.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ranjan Matthew. I represent Impact Church. I'm with MSCRE Group. It's a commercial real estate brokerage. So the Impact Church client, so the client that I'm working with, so they are currently at 2945 Frankfurt Road, just maybe a mile and a half, west or east, of the current property that y'all are selling at 2115. So we are actually listing that property. We have tours already scheduled. We have people that are interested in purchasing it. We do have a contingency on the sale for having their property sold first to be able to buy the new one, but they do have financing in place and will be able to purchase if needed. So the church is growing. They do have intentions of being there for over 25 years, but they did put another condition for 10 years, because if they do get to 25 years down the line, or 10 years, 15 years down the line, they just want to recapture the value that they did have, that they're putting in today. And also, another reason why they do want to have the sale take place of their current property before they buy the new one is because they're going to be going through drastic changes. They're going to be completely revamping the whole place. They're going to make it high-end finishes, have the full 40,000 square foot, completely renovated, exterior, interior, and just be there as long as they can. So I would just hope y'all can consider our offer. We are well above the asking price, so we would greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. We'll proceed to our next agenda item, number 4, the consent agenda. The consent agenda is a mechanism that the board uses to approve a number of routine items together with one single vote. In compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, public notice for this meeting includes the list of all consent agenda items, and the board has been provided ample information about these items in advance. Prior to any action taken on the consent agenda, board members may request the withdrawal of individual items for clarification or discussion. Board members, are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda at this time? Mr. Ramos.
I'd like to remove consent agenda item 4A.
Mr. Ramos has asked for consent agenda item 4A to be removed. Are there any additional items? If there are no other items to be removed, do I have a motion regarding the consent agenda as amended? I have a motion from Ms. Derrick. Do I have a second? I have a second from Mr. Matthews.
Dr. Black, I'll go ahead and state that I am making a motion to approve consent item 4 with the removal of 4A.
We have a motion. Mr. Matthews, second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, raise your hand. With a vote of 6 in favor and 0 opposed, the motion carries. The next agenda item is number 5, non-action items for discussion, and 5A, student outcomes. Report, measures of academic progress. So I'll turn it over to Dr. West for this.
Well, Happy New Year. And if we would have known it was Malcolm's birthday, we would have allowed him to do his construction report tonight. So I know that he's sad that it's student outcomes. But anyway, thank you for allowing us, board, to present about student outcomes tonight. We appreciate the opportunity to present something that ultimately benefits our scholars. The COVID pandemic has introduced uncertainty in the world and our schools. So tonight's presentation will acknowledge COVID slide, but we also want to share with you about CFBISD's COVID climb. When I updated you on your House Bill 3 board goals in early November, I shared that our district continued with MAP testing even though there were challenges. And if you remember, we started school in August with all of our students at home virtually. September 8th, 60% of our students remained remote learning and only 40% returned to traditional school. So we knew that we would be testing, MAP testing, with 60% of our students at their homes, and we had never done MAP testing like that before. We did not want to take what other people were calling a data vacation. Individual student data is important to us in the work that we do with our students. News articles like this one and many others you've seen create lots of fear. Our presentation tonight will give you information that acknowledges that COVID slide, but again, we want you to focus tonight with us on our COVID climb. At this time, I would like to introduce you to my esteemed colleagues that are going to help present tonight. Shashawn Campbell is a coordinator of student learning. She's been in this role for 3 years in CFBISD, 21 years as a district employee, 24 years in education. Shashawn's going to present information regarding the purpose of the MAP assessment and how we use it in CFBISD. Dr. Patty Parker is over there. You heard from her earlier, Director of Research, Testing, and Accountability. This is her 6th year in this role, 18 years in CFBISD, 25 years in education, and she's going to be sharing what we've learned from a national study on math achievement scores and how CFB is doing in comparison. And then Karen Spalding, Director of Elementary Mathematics. This is her 3rd year in CFB, 24th year in education, and 14th year in math leadership. Karen will be talking to you about what we are doing to fill the gaps and address the COVID climb in elementary school students. Shashawn?
Thank you, Dr. West. Good evening. I'm Shashawn Campbell, Coordinator of Student Learning. I'm excited to share with you guys tonight a little information about the MAP assessment. We've currently partnered with NWEA for 13 years in our district, and the MAP assessment is a measure of academic progress that we currently give to all of our students in kindergarten through 9th grade in reading, math, language arts, and science. We do this assessment 3 times a year. MAP is a computerized adaptive assessment where as students take the assessment, it adjusts throughout the assessment to give you an individualized score as to how students are performing and what they are ready to learn. We use MAP to measure student progress as well as student growth throughout the year. One of the things you'll notice is that this is an example of a 7th grade class, and as those students take the assessment, they all start out at their individualized level, and then by the end of the assessment, we get what we call a Rosh unit score, and in CFB, we refer to that as the RIT score. That RIT score is used to help us design instruction to meet the needs of students and to close student gaps. If you notice this class right here, you'll notice that this class spans from 5th grade all the way up to 9th grade in skills that students need to address in the classroom. What we do with MAP is teachers in our district have the opportunity to look at how our students compare nationally to their peers, which STAR is a state test, so nationally we're able to see how are we doing across the country in relation to students that take the test at the same time with our students. We're also able to track student progress and measure student growth. So for example, a student takes the test in the fall and they score a 218. Math projects how much growth a student should have from fall to the end of the year. The teachers are then able to determine an instructional plan to help that student meet that growth by closing the gap. In MAP, our teachers are setting goals with students, looking at how to make those small groups happen in their classroom, and at the end of the year, teachers take the time out to actually celebrate with their students their achievement for the year. At this time, I will turn it over to Dr. Parker to share about the COVID math study. I love my mask. It's like getting out the car.
Okay. I'm going to try to sew out the mask. I think it was might be a little easier to hear the information. We all recognize that our classrooms look very differently this year than they ever have in the past. But we felt it was very important to keep certain aspects of the learning process consistent. And one of those was MAP testing. We knew that the school closures last spring was going to definitely be disruptive. But without assessment data in the spring, we're not able to fully know the impact to student learning. Over 4 million students in grades 3 through 8 took the MAP test this past fall across the United States. And with this MAP data, finally our fall 2020 MAP data in hand, we've begun to kind of explore the impact that COVID-19 has had on learning. The initial findings of the data on reading and math were released by NWA last month. And so we brought in one of the NWA consultants and brought them in to meet with our teaching and learning team to determine and let them share with us what is the research saying, and more importantly, how is our district performing in comparison. So there's a little bit of good news. The overarching question that we really, really want to know is, how did students perform in the fall relative to a typical school year? That's the most important question we have. On the left, you can see the national math performance data. This data comes specifically comparing the fall 2019 MAP scores to fall 2020 scores. Now, compared to 2019, we can clearly see that student achievement in 2020 was lower in each grade level. Overall, nationally, there was an 8 percentile drop in averages. And the greatest drop occurred in grade 3. Now, our district performances, which is on the right-hand side, also show that a drop occurred from students' test scores in the fall 2019 to 2020. But in this side-by-side grade level comparison, our students were outperforming the national student achievement levels in math before the pandemic. And based on our fall 2020 MAP results, CFB students still remain above the national average. Now, these fall MAP results have given us our starting point. By the end of the year, along with STAR results, we'll have a clear picture of where our gaps exist across any and all grade levels. I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague, Karen Spalding, to address specifically how we're going to begin to address those gaps.
Thank you. Good evening. So in addition to growth data, like Ms. Campbell described, and achievement data, like Dr. Parker described, MAP also gives us predictions about how students will perform by the end of the year. And the way they make these predictions is they take the historical evidence of successful students from the years that we've been taking MAP testing, and they compare successful students and look back in time to see how did they perform at the beginning of the year that they were successful. And then we can reverse engineer that and say, well, our students that are performing at the same level are predicted to be successful by the end of the year. This graph is one that you've seen before. Earlier this year, we presented our House Bill 3 outcomes to you. And you saw that blue line, which is what our goals are set in terms of what we hope to increase incrementally over time, the number of students that are receiving a MEETS score on the STAR test at the end of the year. And then the dotted line underneath that shows our beginning of the year MAP projections from the last 2 years and this year. Well, it was no surprise that our students came in this year underperforming based on the unfinished learning that they received from last year. We anticipated this data. With a drop in proficiency projections, this is no surprise. The more important question then is, how are we responding to the students that walked into our door? So we knew at the beginning of the year that our students were going to come to us with significant gaps in their learning, and as hard as our teachers worked to make remote learning effective at the end of last year, it just couldn't compare to what we could have done in a 90-minute math block when we had our students in front of us at our schools. And our very supportive parents did their best to help, but I don't know if you feel this way, but a lot of people don't feel comfortable helping their children with math homework at home. That is common amongst our parents. So even though they did their best to help, we know that most formal math instruction takes place at school. So what our teachers do every day is they have to figure out how to do the job of teaching this year's current curriculum while filling the gaps from unfinished learning that took place at the end of last year. Every day, our teachers have to consider the standard that they're expected to teach and decide, is this a standard where I can merge the unfinished learning into my current curriculum and teach them at the same time? Or is this a standard that has a prerequisite skill where I have to literally stop, fill the gap, before I can get on to the job that I was supposed to do today? So the images of traffic merging or a drawbridge is a nice metaphor for this, because our teachers oftentimes feel like the bridge is up. There's no way for our students to get across unless we stop, fill the gap, and then pick up where we left off. As you can imagine, all of this slows us down. So even though it's the right thing to do for our children, our teachers feel the stress of being behind. I think it's important to admit that the only thing that they are behind in is a comparison to previous years. They're not behind in what they're doing that's right for children. They're behind in where we typically are at this point in the year. So the time that our teachers are taking to slow down or stop and reteach is time well spent. Because if we don't take the time to fix this now, our children will only face larger gaps in the future. So because of this way of thinking, the curriculum department has to work hard to make our curriculum as tight as possible to make as much room for our teachers to slow down and fill gaps. So as a result, we have made major adjustments in order to help them focus on just the most essential curriculum at one time. So for example, we know how important it is that students have a deep understanding of numbers, whole numbers, fractions, decimals. If kids don't understand the numbers they're working with, then the rest of mathematics becomes very challenging for them. We also know how important computation skills are. That includes being efficient and accurate and flexible in their thinking. It includes fact fluency and their ability to solve and persevere through complex word problems. Those are the most critical parts of math instruction. Now rest assured, our teachers are teaching all the standards. Our students deserve the full curriculum from this year. But the standards that are important but a little bit less essential for their success, we've just tried to tighten those units up as compactly as we can so that they can be taught as efficiently as possible to maximize the time that our teachers have for filling gaps. Our teachers are really working hard to make this happen, and I know we will get our students where they need to be, but it is going to take time to recover from the effects of the end of last year. Another key aspect of making this happen is to really keep our eye on data. Now, when we talk about looking at data, it reminds me of the parable of the blind men and the elephant. I don't know if that's one you're familiar with, but the idea is that some men were exploring what an elephant was that could not see the fullness of the elephant at one time. And so the man holding the tail said, an elephant must be like a rope, but that's the only part of the elephant that that man was experiencing. At the end of the fable, they realized that because the elephant is so large, it took their collective experiences to better understand what an elephant truly is. Well, when we think about our student data, it's much like this. It is big and complex, and we have to step back and look at the full picture of data about our students in order to truly understand how they're doing. So it's important that we consider the MAP achievement data that was talked about earlier. We've got to know how our 8-year-olds compare to other 8-year-olds across the nation. We also have to look at the projections and make sure that what we are doing, our actions we're taking, is changing those outcomes that were predicted at the beginning of the year. We have to use our MAP growth data so that even if our children aren't quite yet up to standard, we have something to celebrate with them so that they are proud of the efforts that they have made and grown as they have filled gaps. We're using Dreambox, a software program that you allowed us to purchase to help our teachers fill gaps from previous grade levels. That computer program is helping our students do that as well. We also use our interim data that we give quarterly at every grade level to ensure that we're keeping our eye on the prize at all times. And then most importantly, our teachers have access to quite a bit of short cycle formative assessments within our curriculum. This allows them to teach a little and check a little, and teach a little and check a little, and teach a little and check a little as they go. Those assessments are critical to help them drive their daily instruction so that we are always meeting our students right in the learning, at the zone of learning that they need. So, when you see the big picture, you can see the challenge that we're faced with, but it is not insurmountable. It will take time. But our teachers and our instructional coaches and our administrators are working hard to help our students achieve. And we certainly know that we can't let them down. So we will continue to keep our eye on the big picture of this, of mathematics. We will continue to respond by slowing down when we need to slow down, stopping when we need to stop, in order to fill the gaps so our students can get back on track where they belong. Dr. West?
And this is one of my favorite quotes, and I say it often, and I've said it more often this year, that you can't solve a dynamic problem with static data. And that's why we wanted to be able to share with you tonight that while in November I was presenting to you about some data at one point in time, that in absolutely no way is that the picture, that we continue to use data every single day about each of our individual students, because that's the only way that we can do education and make the best leaps and gains for our scholars. So thank you again for giving us the opportunity to present about student outcomes tonight. Thank you.
Questions or discussions from board members? Mr. Shackman.
When we were looking at the national survey information to extrapolate our students' location, where they're located, do we have any idea about the breakout? We were 60% at home, 40% on campus. MAP doesn't prefer taking tests off campus. They like them to be proctored, they like them to be good. But do we know how other districts, because we're using their data to take a look at us? And the second question is, the numbers that we were looking at, is there any disaggregation taking place because there are weighted RIT scores allowed for economically disadvantaged, all that, so we're factoring that in, and that's factored in the national as well?
That's correct. That is correct. And I do want to share with you, I have some of those numbers here for you. Okay. And literally hot off the press is NWEA's technical brief study separating it between remote learners and in-person. So good. This is literally hot off the presses. Yeah. So we're going to definitely be looking into that one and being able to see kind of how our students performed. But I do want to specifically state that the percentage of tests taken in the fall by learning option, 55% by remote learners and 44% by traditional learners. Yeah, so we knew it was going to be that way. We also know that with regard to how many kids took it from one year to the last, 96% of the students taking the fall MAP test were enrolled in CFB by September the 11th, and that's critical because that's when we were at home, right? And so we knew that they were able to take the fall MAP test at the beginning of the testing window. So some of the students that didn't test were our students that came to us after or at the very close of the testing window. With regard to reading, 97.5% of students enrolled in grades 2 through 8 during the first 9 weeks tested in 2019. So in 2019, we were about 97% of our students were testing on MAP in the fall. With COVID, due to the very first 9 weeks, kids getting here by that September 15th date, it was 88%. That's pretty good considering how many students were remote. We really didn't know what school and safety was going to look like, and so many other districts had even delayed the starting of their dates. So we were really, really close in the area of reading. In the area of math, it was actually at 90%. 90% of our students had tested. So I think we've got a lot of good information, and we're definitely going to be taking a look at remote versus traditional after this winter administration. Because remember, fall was that's not going to be our starting point. So we're going to be taking a look to see where they are now, coming up in the middle of the year.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments from the board? Mr. Bocek?
Thanks for this information. I want to say that I completely appreciate the acknowledgement of the decline, the gap that we have right now, as well as hearing the explanation of what the entire team is doing to address it. I think it was well explained and very beneficial. As a math and science person, I think I stand with you that you don't like these. They're not acceptable, though we understand why they're happening. I appreciate the positive spin in comparing to the national where we are. That is positive, but then looking at fall 19 where we were, you know, it could be discouraging, and I don't want our teachers to be discouraged in the classroom, because I have zero doubt that they're doing everything they can to get back to these numbers where we were. So I appreciate those efforts. On the go a little, test a little, go a little, test a little, is there a way for y'all to gauge where that testing is on the interim points to see that we are going to be making progress on the winter or spring, whenever the next assessment is? I mean, are we getting there?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I look forward to our winter our mid-year map testing, which will begin in the next week. We actually start that Tuesday, because it'll be great for our teacher. It'll be empowering and really celebratory for our students and our teachers to get to see the growth from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year. We can actually see growth already in our Dreambox data. Our district numbers are showing that our students that are completing a minimum of 5 lessons per week in Dreambox are already showing better than a semester's worth of growth. So in 60%, if 100% is a year's worth of growth. So what that program's doing for us is it's helping our teachers fill in some of those gaps of unfinished learning through the computer so that they don't have to carry the full burden themselves. Now, please let me be clear that no computer program will ever outweigh the power of our teachers when they're in front of our students. But it's nice to have that support as well, and we do have evidence that we are making gains in that data. And in our district interim data, which assesses specific standards that we have taught so far this year, we are keeping our eye on how they're doing per tech. So when we look at our interim data, it is because they are in-house created, we don't look at the total score as a prediction for STAR success. But we know that if we have evidence a student has met a standard, then we can predict that that same standard should be successful on STAR as well. So, and we of course spiral those most important standards into every interim we have so that we know we don't lose it either, to keep those plates spinning the whole year round. So we're keeping an eye on all of that data. Our children that are experiencing poverty certainly are at our most at risk. There is definitely still an achievement gap between our students who are in that demographic and our students who are not in that demographic. We've not yet succeeded in completely closing that gap. But our teachers, in part of the big picture of what they look at when they're looking at data, is always our demographic data as well, to keep our eye closely on our most vulnerable students.
Okay, and I'm sure it's extremely frustrating sometimes in the classrooms as well, especially with all of our subjects are important. They are, all of them are. But with math being such a progressive, you compound on top of it every year. So I can see where those gaps are just so much more meaningful and have so much more impact. So
It really
I appreciate
does.
their efforts.
Thanks.
I want us back to those levels. I want us back to those numbers.
We do too.
And thank you for acknowledging the work that our teachers are putting into this. And I want to just take a moment to highlight that because we know that this is hard work, and we know that as you look at data, some days you celebrate it and some days you you have to go back to the drawing board and think and revamp and think about what we're going to do next. But our teachers have been very willing and working very hard to do that. And we are planning summer school in a really big way, acting on this data again, and continuously. And it's a lot of work for our teachers, so thank you for acknowledging that.
Are there any further questions? Thank you, Dr. West, and thanks to your team for giving us your time tonight, and we appreciate the information and the work. Our next item is 5B budget update. I understand this item will not be discussed tonight, and so we will move directly to agenda item 6, items for discussion and action. The next item is 6. Items 6A, items removed from consent. So we'll address the items that were pulled from consent, which was 4A. So, Mr. Ramos, I'll turn to you.
Oh, no, I just wanted to recuse myself from voting on that.
Okay. Mr. Ramos has recused himself from the vote on this. So do I have a motion regarding this agenda item? Mr. Bacek?
I move that we approve agenda item 4A.
Do I have a second? Mr. Matthews seconds. I have a second from Mr. Matthews. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? With a vote of 5 in favor and 0 opposed and 1 recused, the motion carries. Now we'll move to item 6B, consider approve the district's comprehensive financial report for the period ending August 31st, 2020. The Executive Director of Finance, Dr. Jennifer Duplessis, will present this item.
So I think we're going to share some comments on a meeting that was held earlier with the Audit Committee. Thank you, President Black, Dr. Chapman, Board of Trustees, and especially the Audit Committee for being there earlier this evening. Steve does send his regrets he couldn't be here. Might keep him in your thoughts and prayers, along with his mother, Tilly. So we're going to go over a few of the highlights, not the full report that we reviewed with the Audit Committee. You each have a copy of the 2019-2020 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. So we will hit some of the highlights on this report. So the general fund in 1920, the revenue increased slightly as a result of property value increases. The expenditures were down slightly, not just due to COVID, but we no longer were making payments into the Irving TIF. Our fund balance increased at the end of the year by $2.5 million due to a prior period adjustment as a result of a positive property tax value audit outcome. So the projection that we presented to the board on August 20th was within 1 to 2% for all of those items compared to the final financial statements ending August 31st. Some transfers were made out to committed fund balances in accordance with the August board meeting. That provides us with a healthy fund balance of about 4 months, which is very critical right now. There's still a lot up in the air in terms of the hold harmless Dr. Chapman mentioned earlier, as well as what the biennium holds. Again, we're not really overly concerned, but having a healthy fund balance puts us in a positive position to be able to face any challenges that may arise. The Child Nutrition Fund, the revenue was down, not uncommon amongst all districts as a result of the lower participation in the National School Lunch Program. Fortunately, we entered 1920 with a healthy fund balance for student nutrition, so they were able to weather that without any transfers from the general fund, although it did reduce our fund balance to about 1.8 in child nutrition. In debt service, the revenue, expenditures, and fund balance all moved in the positive direction slightly in parallel with each other. So what our auditors did, both Dan and his team were there earlier this evening with the Audit Committee. They not only review the comprehensive annual financial report in relation to our funds that we receive locally, but also they select certain federal funds each year to review within that audit. So this year, they reviewed IDEA B funds, ESSER funds, and Title IV funds as well. So I feel bad that they picked ESSER during an ESSER switch year. That's never happened before. But they had no findings. So the good news out of the audit is there were no findings. It was an unmodified opinion from the auditor, which means they didn't have to suggest any modifications to our comprehensive annual financial report. That means that the data is accurate and a fair representation of our district's financial position. So in summary, I want to say that there's a great deal of positive coming out of this 1920 CAFR that makes us all proud of the work that's been done in the district over the years. For 43 to 44 straight years, this district has received certificates for excellence in financial reporting from GFOA and ASBO. And so we expect that to continue this year. After the Audit Committee's comments and the board's approval, we'll submit this CAFR again to those institutions. And based on prior year feedback, we expect to be receiving those awards again. But we are here to answer any questions, if there are any, prior to reviewing the CAFR.
Okay, board members, this agenda. Okay. Is there a member of the subcommittee that would like to make any comments? Mr. Shackman?
I drew the short straw. No. Dr. Duplessis, thank you for the quick review, and thank you for not wanting to read all 100 and something pages. The Audit Committee, comprised of Tara Herbachik, Sally Derrick, and I, have met multiple times over the last several months with our audit team. As we've worked through the information that you heard briefly presented, it is astounding the blessing we have as a school district to be in the strong financial position we are in during this time. And it is a significant credit to our administration, but especially to our financial team who has helped to guide and lead us through this time, helping all of us to be good stewards and to maximize efficiency every time we possibly can. And Dr. Duplessis, on behalf of the board, please share with all of the financial team how proud we are to be board members in a district where there are such outstanding people working in finance to keep us whole. It makes a difference. And this is an exciting report. She used two key phrases. She said we got an unmodified report and there were no significant findings. Those don't sound like a lot until you get to audits, and then what we just got is an A+, and it continues to be that way year after year after year. And board members, on behalf of my colleagues who worked with me on the Audit Committee, we are very proud of the work that's been done, and we're very proud to take and encourage us to adopt this current CAFR as presented, and good things are coming.
Thank you, Mr. Shackman, and members of the Audit Committee. This is an agenda marked for action. Is there a motion to be considered?
So, Dr. Black, I will move that we adopt the CAFR for 2019-2020 as presented.
I have a motion from Mr. Shackman. Is there a second? From Ms. Derrick? I have a second from Ms. Derrick. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. All those opposed? With a vote of 6 yes and 6 in favor and 0 opposed, the motion carries. Our next item is number 7 and includes 7A and 7B. Closed meeting as authorized under Texas Government Code, including but not limited to Section 551.071, consultation with an attorney, 551.072, real property, 551.074, personnel matters. 551.076, security devices. 551.082, school children, district employees, disciplinary matter or complaint. 551.0821, personally identifiable student information, or 551.084, investigation. 7A, pursuant to Section 551.072 of the Texas Government Code, real property, deliberation regarding potential sale or exchange of real property. 7B, pursuant to Section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code, consultation with district's legal counsel regarding legal and procedural matters relating to sale or exchange of real property. Audience members are welcome to remain in the boardroom as the board members recess and move into room 4 for deliberations. The time is now 8:20 p.m. Meeting is recessed. Item 8, we are back on the record in open session, having returned from closed session. The time is now, can't see the clock, 9:21 p.m. Board members, is there a motion to be made at this time?
That's you.
Mr. Matthews?
Mr. President, I'd like to read this resolution.
Make it as a motion.
I'd like to, what? Oh, I'll move
Move that we accept.
that we accept the resolution that I'm about to read. Carrollton-Farmers Branch Independent School District, State of Texas, Counties of Dallas and Denton. Whereas on May the 2nd, 2019, the Board of Trustees of Carrollton-Farmers Branch Independent School District determined that the real property consisting of 4.884 acres, more or less, known as 2115 East Frankford Road, Carrollton, Texas, 75007, and described below is not necessary to meet the current and foreseeable needs of the district for educational purposes. The surface only of Lot 1, Block A of Prince of Peace Lutheran Church Addition, in addition to the City of Carrollton, Denton County, Texas, according to the plat thereof recorded in Cabinet G, page 321, Plat Records, Denton County, Texas, the property shall include improvements located on the property. The property shall not include any personal property not permanently affixed to the land. Whereas on May the 2nd, 2019, the Board of Trustees authorized administration to advertise the property for sale pursuant to Section 272.001A of the Texas Local Government Code, and whereas on January 6, 2021, the Carrollton-Farmers Branch Independent School District received sealed bids, and the highest bid was submitted by Impact Church and the second highest bid by Kalam Education Fund Incorporated. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of the Carrollton-Farmers Branch Independent School District as follows. Section 1, Recitals. That the findings and recitals in the preamble of this resolution are hereby found to be true and correct and are hereby approved and adopted. Section 2, Approval of Bid. That the Board of Trustees accepts and approves the bid received by the district from Impact Church regarding the sale of the district's interest in the property described above, contingent on Impact Church signing the original contract contained in the bid package without the conditions of sale requested by Impact Church, and if Impact Church does not accept said contract, the board accepts and approves the bid received by Kalam Education Fund Incorporated. Section 3, Authorization Superintendent. That the Board of Trustees authorizes the superintendent to negotiate and execute the contract and execute other documents necessary to effect the conveyance of the property, with the exception of the deed, which may only be executed by the board president. Section 4, Authorization Board President. That provided the conditions of the contract are satisfied, the Board of Trustees authorizes board president to execute the deed. Section 5, Further Actions. That the school district administration is authorized to take any and all appropriate action to accomplish and effectuate the purposes of this resolution. Section 6, Public Meeting. It is hereby found, determined, and declared that a sufficient written notice of date, time, place, and subject of the meeting of the Board of Trustees at which this resolution was adopted was posted at a place convenient and readily accessible at all times to the general public at the regular meeting place of the Board of Trustees for the time required by law proceeding this meeting as required by Chapter 551 Texas Government Code, and that this meeting has been open to the public as required by law at all times during which the resolution and the subject matter thereof has been discussed, considered, and formally acted upon. The Board of Trustees further ratifies, approves, and confirms such written notice and the contents and posting thereof. Passed, approved, and adopted by the Board of Trustees of the Carrollton-Farmers Branch Independent School District, Dallas, Texas, Dallas County, Texas, on the 14th day of January, 2021.
I have a motion from Mr. Matthews. Is there a second? Mr. Ramos seconds. Is there discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. All those against, indicate by raising your hand. With a vote of 6 in favor and 0 against, the motion carries. Our next item is number 9, and it includes 9A, consultation with an attorney, 9A1, 9A1A, and 9A1B. Closed meeting is authorized under Texas Government Code, including but not limited to Section 551.01, consultation with an attorney, 551.02, real property, 551.074, personnel matters, 551.076, security devices, 551.082, school children district employees disciplinary matter or complaint, 551.0821, personally identifiable student information, 551.084, investigation. Item 9A1, to consult with its attorney when the board seeks advice about pending or contemplated litigation or a settlement officer, or when an attorney will have an ethical duty of confidentiality, Texas Government Code 551.071. Item 9A1A, consultation with district legal counsel regarding TEA docket number 302/SE/0820, and item 9A1B, consultation with district legal counsel regarding TEA docket number 303-SE-0820. Audience members are welcome to remain in the boardroom as board members recess and move into room 4 for deliberations. The time is now 9:28 p.m. This meeting is recessed.
an audience for yes.
Item 10, we are back on the record in open session, having returned from closed session. The time is now 10:25 p.m. Board members, is there a motion to be made at this time? Ms. Derrick.
Dr. Black, I move that in regards to TEA docket number 302 SE 0820, the board approved the terms in the mediation agreement reached in this matter.
I have a motion from Ms. Derrick. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Matthews. Is there any discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. All those against, please indicate by raising your hand. With a vote of 6 in favor and 0 against, the motion carries. Board members, is there a motion to be made at this time? Ms. Derrick.
Dr. Black, I move that in regard to TEA docket number 303-SE-0820, the board approve the terms of the mediation agreement reached in this matter.
I have a motion from Ms. Derrick. Is there a second? Second from Ms. Urbachek. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. All those against, please indicate by raising your hand. With a vote of 6 in favor and 0 against, the motion carries. The board will move on to the next agenda item 11, comments from board members regarding posted agenda items. Board members, do you have any comments you wish to make at this time related to the posted agenda?
Dr. Black?
Mr. Chapman.
Relative to posted agenda to come, I would like to request that we put an item on the February regular board meeting agenda to begin a review discussion process of cumulative voting. Mr. Matthews and I are the only 2 board members that are still here from when that was put in place, and we were going to do that after a full cycle, 3 elections. We are past that. I don't know that we need to or will want to change anything, but the board's intent back then was to take a look, see what's happening, and certainly we would not want to, I would not recommend that we would do anything that would impact this year's election, but I think we need to start looking at it, collect the data, see what's happening, and determine. We still get a lot of questions and some complaints from people about the system, and so I would like us to agendize that. It's probably something that we need to work on over several sessions, but to begin that discussion.
Any other comments about posted agenda items tonight?
I would agree that that's something that we probably need to do based on what we decided over 3 years ago.
Right. We have 2 board members. Very good.
I would be willing to volunteer to start pulling together data and information and disseminate it to board members prior to the meeting so we have something to discuss.
Okay, if you just channel all the information through Dr. Chapman so he can keep us informed. Very good. Are there any further comments from board members regarding any of the posted agenda items? Hearing none, I guess we are at that time. So ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of our agenda. We are adjourned at 10:29 p.m.
Resolution.